I guess, first of all, I wanted to know from you how you believe or where you believe that your creative sensibilities and those of Bret Easton Ellis's are simpatico.
Well, there's a generational difference. There's a generational difference between Bret and I, and then between Bret and the characters in this movie. But I think that I like his characters. I like his dialogue. We were supposed to do another film that fell apart, and I got in touch with him and I said, fuck it, Bret. I like the stuff you write. Well, let's just do something together, and we'll pay for it ourselves. So that's how it all started. He thinks the film is more me than him. I think it's more him than me. So I guess that's the definition of a good collaboration.
And the truth is probably, in the middle. So you talk about a generational difference, and you came up in the youth-driven Hollywood of the 70s, and when you compare that time to this time, how is it different?
Well, there's the three big generational shifts. My generation obviously was, the kind of protest, cultural revolution generation, very idea-driven. And Bret's American Psycho generation is extremely materialistic. And this current generation is almost in a kind of post-materialistic sort of haze. In other words, they're doing all the materialistic things, but they're not enjoying it. Mm. When we had our first rehearsal, I said to the cast, this is a movie about 20-somethings in Los Angeles who got in line to see a film, and then the theater closed. But they stayed in line because they had nowhere else to go. Mm. And so, so these are kids who are making a movie that don't really like movies. These are kids who are hooking up, who really, aren't in love. It is a rather bleak picture that Brad painted with this script. It's not necessarily one I could have written.
But do you think that feeling of apathy, which absolutely wasn't part of your generation, I mean, your generation was very active in what was going on in the world, and your art reflected that. But do you feel that
we can make the world better? There's nobody today who actually thinks anything's going to get any better. In fact, they all believe everything's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm. Well, last time we spoke, you one of the provocative statements you made was that you believe that movies were dead or were dying, and I see that reflected in this film and the themes that you just expressed, but also your transitions are old abandoned movie houses. Go ahead.
That's that theme of people who are doing movies, but just like their sex lives are dead, the movies are dead. Now, you have to be a little careful when you define movies. But by movies, I mean the projected image in front of an audience in a dark room. I mean, I think that's going away. So in my very first email to Bret, when I proposed this idea, I said, let's do cinema for a post-theatrical era. And that turned out to be exactly what we're doing. We are opening up in some theaters in a couple of weeks, but this is designed for post-theatrical cinema, and the term straight to video has no meaning anymore, because we're going out on every venue, just like Nick Refn's film this weekend.
Yeah, unbelievable. And last weekend we had a De Niro Travolta movie that premiered at home. So it is absolutely a changing landscape. But here's a question I had for you, because the Canyon started getting wide press before you guys even started production on it. By the way, you were raising funds for it, and then it got another dose of press from the casting of Lindsay Lohan. Were you ever afraid that that kind of attention was bound to overshadow the film itself, or did you welcome it?
Yeah, you welcomed it because you don't have a choice. The magic word now in Hollywood is noise. Does this idea have noise? Well, I'm making this film on a micro budget, just like 10,000 other people are right now. Which film is going to get its head above the crowd? Well, it's going to be the film with some noise. Mm-hmm. And how do you get noise? Well, there's different ways, but in the end, the noise is good because you have to believe the film will stand on its own. But it won't stand on its own if nobody sees it. Yeah. And so you start to kind of stir the pot. We've had a Facebook chronicle of the making of the film. In our new media era, you have to it's not the idea of holding something back, which was the old idea, is now been replaced by scattergunning the media all the time. Because there aren't any major media outlets left. There isn't the cover of Time magazine anymore. There isn't. You have to scattergun. And of course, when you do that, there are going to be the Perez Hiltons of this world who really ridicule you. But then that's their game anyway. Better to have them ridicule you than ignore you.
Right. But what's most fascinating to me about this movie is there's a kind of meta aspect to it. What it says about celebrity is inherent in the casting itself, because Lindsay and James Dean, they both represent something specific to how we use celebrity today.
One's an icon of celebrity culture, and the other is an icon of the adult culture. And then, so therefore, that's a very interesting pairing, because people are going to say, well, what happens when these two things get together? So that's inherently interesting, and then with the umbrella of myself and Brett, it makes it even more interesting. So yes, it was designed to get people's attention that way. As soon as Lindsay started coming on board, I hadn't thought about casting James seriously. I screen tested him; he was very good. But when she started coming on board, I said, this whole notion of post-Empire that Brett has, this is post-Empire casting. We called the film a post-Empire production. He believes we are in a post-Empire art world now, where the American century is over, and we're now making art out of the crap that's left over, just like Britain did last century. And so the idea of collecting the discards of culture and making a post-Empire art is exactly what we were kind of after with that casting.
I have one last question for you, because I know you're pressed for time, but kind of getting back to the generational difference, your reasoning for making films today, is the thing that turned you on about making films the same now as it was when you started?
No. I'm getting ready to do another film, but obviously, I'm getting to the end of my career, and so you're no longer interested in making an impression, but you're trying to sort of pull some things together that you've always been interested in. Although in the Canyons, actually, part of the real interest in this was, can you make a film this way? Obviously, I was interested in making this film, but I was equally interested in whether it was even possible. Can you do it DIY? And how do you do it? And so that was one of the great attractions of this whole project, and basically we got lucky. You know, we went into the casino, we put everything on red, the wheel came up red, and if we have any brains, we'll get out of the casino now.
So you're not anxious to go this route again?
Well, I'm not planning on it. If these circumstances arose again, where you saw a kind of confluence of interest at a micro-budget level that would be really fascinating, yes, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I wouldn't try to force. It has to be there. It has to, feel genuine.
Yeah.
You can't just say, let's make a film for $100,000 because we want to. You have to say, does this really make sense to do? And like the next film I'm doing, there's no way it would be any good if done under this model.
Mm. And that's the one with Nicolas Cage you've cast?
Yeah.
Okay.
It hasn't been announced yet, but it's there.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you giving me time today. Your movies have meant so much to me in my life, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you.